Tell you exactly what happened to my wife on the night of November 14th. I'm gonna tell you all of it. Not the clean version, not the version we told her parents at Thanksgiving, not the version where I leave out the parts that still wake me up at 3 in the morning. I'm gonna tell you the real version, start to finish. Because if I don't say it out loud, I feel like it's gonna keep living inside me forever, and I can't have that anymore. Her name is Mara. She's 28 years old. She is the most level-headed, practical, no-nonsense person I have ever met in my life. And I want you to hold on to that, because everything I'm about to tell you happened to her. Not someone who spooks easy, not someone who imagines things. Mara, the woman who once calmly changed a tire on I-75 in the rain while I stood there holding a flashlight like a useless idiot. That Mara. She was coming home from her sister's wedding. It was a Saturday night out in Lowndes County, Georgia, deep south, rural, the kind of place where you can drive 45 minutes and not see another car. The wedding was beautiful. We'd both been there, but I had to leave early. I had a work thing Sunday morning. I know, she reminded me of that for months, so she was driving home alone. She'd done it 100 times. Route 9 back into the city, straight shot, maybe 2 hours. She left the venue just before 10. She never made it home that night. Let me back up a little bit and set the scene for you because the geography matters. Route 9 in that part of Georgia is not a highway. It's a 2-lane state road running through tobacco and peanut farmland. No street lights, no cell towers for long stretches. The kind of road where your GPS signal goes in and out and you're just kind of trusting your own memory and the white dashes on the asphalt to keep you going in the right direction. Mara knew it well enough. She'd grown up 40 minutes from there. She wasn't afraid of rural roads at night. That was, in a way, part of the problem. Because she wasn't afraid, she didn't panic when she hit the detour. She just slowed down, read the sign. Hand-painted, plywood, white letters, said bridge out, detour, follow signs, and turned left without thinking too hard about it. It was maybe 11:45. She figured it would add 20-30 minutes. She'd be home by 1. Fine. What she didn't know, what none of us knew until much later, was that the real detour sign had been on a completely different stretch of Route 9, about 6 miles north. The sign she followed had been stolen from the actual detour site and moved, planted, right at Hendricks Crossroads, specifically to catch people coming in from the direction of the wedding venue. Someone had put it there on purpose. The road it sent her down didn't have a name on any map I could find. It was a gravel road, maybe a lane and a half wide, cutting straight into pine forest. No markings, no houses, no nothing. Her headlights barely reached 30 feet in the rain. She drove. She told me later that the thing that unsettled her most in those first few minutes wasn't fear exactly. It was the quiet. She said it was the kind of quiet that has weight to it. You know what I mean? Like the absence of sound is itself a thing pressing against you. No other cars, no animals, just her engine and the rain and gravel popping under her tires. Her GPS was dead. No signal. She tried her phone, nothing. She turned on the radio and got static on everything except one faint country station playing Hank Williams, and she said she almost laughed because it was so perfectly, absurdly on the nose. Lost in rural Georgia at midnight, Hank Williams barely coming through the static. If it wasn't so terrifying, it would have been funny. She drove for about 10 minutes on that gravel road before she hit the T-intersection. No sign, no arrow, just a crossroads in the middle of the woods with no indication of which way to go. She stopped, got out of the car. She's braver than me. I would not have gotten out of that car, and stood in the drizzle looking both ways. To the right, maybe half a mile off, she could see a faint glow. Could be anything, but it was something. And something is better than nothing when you're standing alone in the dark at midnight. She went right. The glow was a gas station. One of those old cinder block ones that look like they haven't been renovated since 1987. 2 pumps under a corrugated metal roof. Single buzzing fluorescent light over the door. The sign said Fuller's Stop, open 24 hours. The door was locked. She knocked. No answer. She could see inside. Candy racks, a small TV playing an infomercial, a register, but no attendant. Nobody. But there was a payphone, an actual payphone, mounted on the wall outside, and she told me later that when she picked it up and heard the dial tone, she almost started crying. She called me first. I didn't pick up. I was asleep, phone on silent. And I have had to live with that, the fact that when she needed me I was asleep with my phone on silent, so she hung up and called 911. The dispatcher was calm, professional. Mara told her she was lost off Route 9. She was at Fuller's Stop. She wasn't sure exactly what county. The dispatcher said she'd send a deputy. 20 to 30 minutes. Stay with the vehicle. Mara got back in her car, locked the doors, turned the heat up, watched the infomercial through the gas station window and waited. She'd been sitting there maybe 6 minutes when she saw the man. He was standing at the far edge of the parking lot, right at the boundary of the light, where the fluorescent glow faded into dark. Standing completely still, yellow rain slicker, the old fisherman kind with the deep hood, hands at his sides. His face was in shadow. Now, I want you to think about how you would feel in that moment. You're alone, middle of the night, lost road you didn't mean to be on, and there is a man, standing completely still, in the dark, at the edge of the light, watching you. Mara said her first instinct was to convince herself it was nothing. Somebody taking a walk. A local. Normal. She tried that for about 30 seconds before her brain said no, actually, this is not normal, and her hand went to the door lock even though it was already locked. She watched him. He didn't move. She laid on the horn, one long blast. The sound of it seemed almost obscene out there in the quiet. He didn't flinch, didn't startle, just turned his head, slowly, toward her. She blasted it again. He took one step forward, then stopped. She picked up her phone, no signal, and sat there with it in her hand like it was a talisman, like holding it would somehow help. Then the man moved again, not toward her car, sideways toward the gas pump. He walked up to it and put his hand on the pump handle and just stood there, not pumping, not doing anything, just standing with his hand on the handle. Mara said it reminded her of how a child stands at a door they're not allowed to open, like he was waiting for something. Her phone flickered to 1 bar. She called me. I picked up that time. It must have been the second or third time she called. I don't know, I was half asleep and confused, and she told me there was a man outside. She sounded controlled, the way she gets when she's scared but refusing to let it show. I told her stay in the car, lock the doors. Brilliant advice, David. Thank you, very helpful. And then the call dropped. 1 bar, gone. She sat there, watched the man, and then he walked toward her car. He came around to the passenger side, slowly, no urgency. He bent down and knocked on the window, 3 soft taps like someone at a hotel door. And Mara said she almost didn't look at him. She didn't want to look at him, but she made herself. He was about 50, maybe older, face like old leather, a scar running from his chin to his left ear, long and pale, dark eyes. His expression wasn't threatening exactly, it was blank, the kind of blankness that's harder to read than anger. She cracked the window maybe 2 inches. He said, and she told me this word for word. He said, you shouldn't be here. She told him she was waiting for a deputy. He said, that's not what I mean. And then he asked her something that stopped her cold. He asked her, did you put that detour sign there? Or did you find it? She said she found it on Route 9. He nodded, like he already knew that. And then he told her. He told her that the detour sign had been stolen and moved 3 times in the past 2 weeks. He told her the sheriff knew about it. He told her the last 2 people who followed that sign had never come back out. He told her about the woman in the blue Civic 2 Fridays before, came in to get gas, drove out the back road, and vanished. Car was never found. And then a couple the week after, Texas plates, he thought, same thing, in and then gone. He said he'd told the local deputy all of this. Deputy named Daniels. And then he said something that I've turned over in my head probably 1,000 times since. He said, when the deputy gets here, make sure it's Daniels himself. Because Daniels is a good man, and there are other men wearing that uniform who are not. Mara asked him what he meant by that. He just looked at her for a long moment, and then he said he was going home. He'd leave his porch light on. If she needed to run toward the light, a 1/4 mile up the road, straight ahead. And he walked away into the dark. Mara sat in that car for 11 minutes. She counted. She told me later that counting was the only thing keeping her from just flooring it in any direction and not stopping until she hit a town. Headlights came in off the road. Sheriff's cruiser, county markings, tan and brown, pulled alongside her and the window came down. The deputy was maybe 35. Broad face, buzzed hair, big smile. His name tag said Hollis. He was friendly, very friendly. Too friendly for midnight on a back road, Mara thought, but she tried to set that aside. She told him she was lost. She'd gotten turned around on the detour. He said it happened a lot. She asked for Daniels. She told me that the moment she said Daniel's name, something changed in the deputy's face. It was brief, a fraction of a second, but it was there, a kind of stillness that wasn't natural. He told her Daniels was off that night. He was the on-call deputy. Was there a problem? She said no. She'd just been told to ask for him by a local man. Hollis said that was probably Earl Pruitt. Odd fella, means well but tends to exaggerate. He said it smoothly, like he'd said it before, and maybe he had. Then he offered to lead her back to Route 9, said she could follow him, and she said yes, fine, but she'd stay in her own car. She didn't want to ride with him, some instinct already curling up inside her chest. He said that was no problem at all. He offered 2 routes, back the way she came or a shortcut through the back road faster, he said. The back road. Don't take the back road. She said no thanks. The long way was fine. He said suit yourself and pulled forward, and she followed. They were maybe 2 minutes down the gravel road when it happened. The radio. She'd left it on, and through the static, she caught something. A voice on a frequency she didn't recognize. Calm, measured, almost like someone reading off a checklist. And what it said was, white female, green dress, silver Honda Accord, traveling the Route 9 corridor. Lowndes, Cook, or Berrien. No confirmation on location yet. A description of her car, her dress, broadcast on some frequency she'd stumbled onto by accident. She said her whole body went cold. Not scared cold. The other kind, the kind where your body understands something before your brain has fully processed it, and it just starts shutting down to conserve resources for what comes next. She let her foot off the gas. She picked up her phone, 1 bar, maybe, and called 911. She whispered into it, told the dispatcher she thought something was wrong with the deputy, told her the name Hollis, asked for Daniels. The dispatcher started to respond, and then Hollis's brake lights flared red. He stopped. He got out of the cruiser and walked back toward her, hand on his belt, still smiling. She ended the call. She told me that standing there in her headlights, with the rain coming down on him and that smile on his face and his hand resting on his belt, he looked completely normal. That's the thing that haunts her most. He looked like a deputy doing his job. Calm, professional, patient. He asked if she was okay. She said she thought she'd seen something on the road. He suggested she ride with him. Safer that way. They could come back for her car. She said no. He suggested it again. She said no again. There was a pause. He looked at her, just looked at her, and then he said okay and walked back to his cruiser. She watched him get in, and then she put the car in reverse. I need to stop here for a second, because when Mara told me this part, the part where she reversed and turned around, she started crying. Not because she was scared, but because she was angry at herself. She kept saying, I should have known sooner. I should have turned around at the T intersection. I should have never followed that sign. And I sat there and held her hand and told her she did everything right, and I meant it. But I also understood the anger, because it's easier to be angry at yourself than to sit with what she actually escaped. So she reversed, turned around, gravel spraying, and in her rearview mirror she could see the cruiser's headlights swinging around, and she knew that she had maybe 90 seconds before he closed the gap. She floored it back toward the gas station. She blew through the parking lot and kept going, straight up the road past it, because she remembered what Earl had said. Quarter mile, straight up the road. I'll leave the light on. She was looking for a porch light. Left side, right side, scanning, and then she saw it. A warm yellow square in the dark. A farmhouse set back from the road, gravel drive. A man already standing in the open doorway. Earl Pruitt. She skidded into that driveway so hard she almost went into the ditch. She threw the door open and ran for the porch, and she said Earl didn't say a word, just grabbed her arm and pulled her inside and threw the deadbolt. And then he was on the phone, voice low and flat, saying, "Daniels, get to my place right now. Hollis is running the sign play again." She sat at Earl's kitchen table with her hands shaking around a mug of coffee he'd made for her. She didn't even remember him making it. She just suddenly had it in her hands, and he told her everything. Hollis wasn't working alone. There were at least 3 of them, maybe 4. They'd been moving the detour sign for months, sending isolated travelers down to an old property on the back road. A family property, a place that had been officially abandoned for 20 years. The woman in the blue Civic, the couple from Texas. There had been others, Earl thought, more than he knew about. Daniels had been building a case, quietly, carefully, because Hollis was connected, county commissioner, local money, the whole thing. And every time the investigation got close, something happened to slow it down. Evidence misfiled. Witnesses who suddenly didn't want to talk. The usual rot. Earl had been calling Daniels every time someone came through his road looking lost. Had been doing it for months. But Mara was the first one who turned around before it was too late. He looked at her across that table and said, "And I'm getting this second hand from Mara, but I believe her completely." He said, "You're the first one to make it out." They sat in that kitchen and listened to Hollis's cruiser circle the property. Once, twice, slow, like he was making a decision. And then headlights swept the window again, and Earl looked out and said, "That's Daniels." I don't know everything that happened after that. Some of it is still under investigation, and we've been asked not to discuss it publicly. And honestly, I respect that, so I'm going to be careful here. What I can tell you is that Daniels arrived with a state investigator who had been driving in from Valdosta for 2 hours. Earl had called him before he even called Daniels, had set that in motion the moment Mara pulled into his driveway, and that within 20 minutes there were state police vehicles rolling down the back road toward the old Creel property. What they found there is not something I'm going to describe to you tonight, partly because of the investigation, and partly because some things deserve more gravity than a story told on the internet at night. What I'll say is that the people who needed to be found, the ones who came before Mara, some of them were found. And Hollis and the people who worked with him were arrested within 48 hours. Earl Pruitt sat with my wife at his kitchen table until the state police were done with her statement, and then he drove his own truck ahead of the police cruiser to make sure she got back to Route 9 safely. When she tried to thank him, he waved her off and told her to get home. She called me from the road. I picked up on the first ring. I hadn't slept. She told me she was okay. She told me she was 10 minutes away. She told me to put the kettle on. And when she finally walked through our front door, still in that green dress, barefoot because she'd left her heels in the car, hair damp from the rain, I just held on to her for a long time without saying anything. Because there are moments where words are just the wrong tool. I've thought about this night every day since it happened. I think about the person who first stole that sign and moved it. I think about how many times they'd done it, how routine it had become, how many drives home had started the same way Mara's did and ended differently. I think about Earl Pruitt, an ordinary man on an ordinary back road, who decided it was his business, who kept calling, who left his porch light on every single night just in case. I think about the moment Mara heard her own description on that radio frequency and made the choice to slow down. A fraction of a second. A different woman might have thought she misheard, might have told herself she was being paranoid, might have kept following those brake lights. She didn't. And I think about the drive itself, the sign, the T intersection, the gas station, the man in the yellow slicker, the deputy's smile, and how every single piece of it looked almost normal. Almost. That's the thing about the real kind of danger, the kind that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't look like a monster. It looks like a detour sign. It looks like a helpful smile. It looks like a shortcut. It looks almost like nothing. I'll end with this. We drove back out to Fuller's Stop about a month later. Just the 2 of us in the daytime. I don't know exactly why. Mara wanted to, and so we went. The gas station was closed up, had been for years it turned out, and we stood in that empty parking lot in the November sunlight, and I tried to imagine it at midnight in the rain the way she'd seen it. Then we drove up the road to Earl Pruitt's house. He came out onto the porch before we even knocked, like he'd been expecting us. He shook my hand and told me I had a smart wife. I told him I knew. We stayed for about an hour. He showed us his living room, which has a window that looks directly down the road, and he told us he'd put that porch light in himself years ago because he liked being able to see it from bed. When we got back in the car, Mara looked at his house for a moment through the window, and then she looked at me and said, "Some people just decide to be the light." I didn't say anything. There wasn't anything to say to that. I started the car. We drove home.